Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Arthur Invests. Just wanted to send a quick note here. This is not going to be a long video, but came across an interesting article that I wanted to share with you. One of the things that we're hearing a lot about these days is about the word inflation, right? And so people will typically say, the price of assets raising up and your dollars being able to purchase those is going to take more dollars to purchase those same assets over time because the dollar is starting to get devalued or debased. And one of the things that I think is interesting is, well, that's true. We're starting to see inflation. Some of that's from monetary policy. Some of that's because there's a lot of dollars in people's accounts and they're circulating around a smaller number of assets, right? So there's a couple of factors there. But one of the things that is very interesting is kind of what's happening on the macro level. And while this is probably just a small article that doesn't really tell the full story of what's happening in the global economy, I'm an average Joe, right? Going to take a piece of information that I see and then just try to project a little bit into the future, try to make some assumptions, and then take some actions for how I think I'm going to be impacted. So here's what I'll share with you. Came across this article here. Let me share my screen with you so you can see what I'm seeing. Alrighty, so this is what I'm looking at here. And you'll notice the title that says, Russia says it will remove dollar assets from its wealth fund. Now, I'm not naive enough to pretend to be either a political commentary or an economist. And so I'm not really going to be speaking about this from the political side of the fence. But what I will point to is just a trend, right? Or not a trend, just a note of something that could potentially become a trend for us, right? And basically what this article is talking about is ahead of a summit that, Putin's going to have with Biden. They're kind of taking this a little bit as an act of aggression against the U.S., saying that, we're putting sanctions on them. And in response to that, they're going to move away from the dollar as one of the assets that it holds in its kind of essentially what it holds in its national wealth fund, right? Now, so there's a couple of things that stood out to me. You could read the whole article. I'll include it there down below. And while I don't really care about Russia's financial position, I did think this was kind of an interesting piece here. So this is basically being said about this from one of the folks in Russia. He says this message is, or the opinion is essentially from the commentators. The message is we don't need the U.S. and we don't need to transact in dollars. We are invulnerable to more U.S. And while that's kind of interesting, they don't want a transaction that. I think the part that's really interesting is he says something here about Iran. Let me see if I can find that piece for you. Okay, this is the part that I wanted to show you here. So thank you for bearing with me. What alarms me, and this is the commentator speaking here, what alarms me is if Russia, China, and Iran create digital currencies that can operate outside the US dollar, that would be alarming. So why is that something we should be calling out? Why am I bringing that up here? Well, think about it, right? From a natural flow of things, if people start to look at other currency models, right, cryptocurrency or just other digital mediums, does the value of having reserve currency matter? I don't know. I don't actually know the answer to that question. My point in bringing it up is it's just something we need to keep an eye on. Is this a trend of future things to come? Is this a one-off thing? Well, I think we can probably agree there's going to be more digital currencies moving forward, not less. And so if that's the case, what is the value of the dollar? I think it's a very interesting point. Now, here's what I'll suggest as a thing to beat the drum of real estate here. People think about real estate, they look at the asset in terms of the home. And while that's probably true, I would say that's about 70% of the asset. 30% of the asset is the financing. If you're looking at conventional financing, you're looking at stuff that you can get today, even as an investor, sub 4% interest rate. And if the dollar continues to get devalued and beat up, even if it's transitory, as the Fed is saying, it's only going to be bubbled up for a little bit here, then it'll start to self-correct, which I actually don't think is the case. We usually start to see other countries walk away from the dollar. I think assets continue to rise. Things get more expensive. The dollar becomes less valuable. And so you want to have your debt anchored to something that's fixed over a long period of time because you're protecting your wealth as inflation grows. So something to be considering here. Now, Is this a sign of things to come? Is this just a one-off? I don't know, but I will say that I think it's more likely that we're going to see more countries do this, and we will be immediately impacted by that as the dollar starts to lose strength and we have to continue to import things and purchase stuff that's manufactured and supply chain related issues. So take it for what it's worth. Think about fixed rate interest debt that you can get into. And yeah, be curious to see how this all plays out as we start to move throughout this next phase. So thanks, everybody. You take care.